All righty. So everyone's had a little rest over the weekend. So some of us have. Sorry, guys. Now we're ready for the next week of excitement. So here we are, week two of the Northern Digital Storytelling Festival 2023. My name's Heather Niven, and Maggie, my partner in crime, who's below me on my screen, I don't know where she is on yours, are here to host today. We've got some great speakers with us. We've got Bronnie from the BBC and Bethany from Experience Heritage, who are going to be sharing some really exciting information and talks and insights with us today. And the topic today is what tools can be used for digital storytelling and why. So really starting to get into now the nitty gritty of some of the things you can play with yourself, and what's around for you to be able to engage with, to be able to tell your own story. So, as with last week, we've got curated talks from people at the top of their game. We're aiming to try and empower and upskill and inspire, and also just demystify many of these elements that are moving so quickly in this space at the moment. So, hopefully, we're going to have a range of talks this week, from theatre, screen and mobile to AI and mixed reality technologies. And everything's evolving at such a rate. It's great to have some conversations with people who are experts in the field to get our heads around everything that's going on at the moment. So the festival's free to attend. It's all online, and it's also going to be recorded for afterwards. So you just need to go to northerndigifest.co.uk, and you'll find that there's a tab up around session recordings, and you can access everything after the events there. So go, and they're pretty much up about an hour after the sessions. So go and check them out later if you're interested. So the format today, we're one speaker down, unfortunately, but we have two excellent speakers who will make up for it, I'm sure. So we've got about 15-minute talks from both our speakers, and then we'll have a wee bit of a chat and questions and answers at the end. We might finish a little bit earlier than 1:30, just because we've got one less speaker. So don't panic if we finish a little bit early. But if we're having a good chat, we'll just take our time and see where we get to. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Bronnie first. And then we're going to get cracking. So Bronnie is a producer at the BBC Research and Development with a focus on connected studio Makerbox. In this role, she drives the adoption of new technologies through building relationships and partnerships with both internal and external teams, offering insight and guidance on best practice using innovative tools, creating interactive and immersive experiences, and engaging with the wider Makerbox community through workshops, public trials, and events. So over to you, Bronnie.
Hello, thank you. I'm just gonna, we did do a test of screen sharing, but let's hope that I do it properly as well and remember to share my sound. So I'm just gonna share that. And I think if I go like this and then go like this, we should be good to go.
No, other way. You were fine the
other
first
way.
time.
Right. Like
That's
this.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Off to a good start. Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about BBC Makerbox and a few of the digital tools that we have to offer. As Heather mentioned, my name is Bronnie McCarthy. I'm a producer at BBC R&D. And before we get started on the actual tools, just wanted to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background about who we are, what we do, what Makerbox is, and sort of why we exist. So our team's focus is all about driving the adoption of technology. And we aim to do this in these ways. So transferring R&D technology and helping find new routes to market, both for tools that the BBC have developed, but also third-party tools. We then test this innovation out in the real world through live trials and events. So in previous years, we've been to MozFest, Edinburgh Festival. We run hackathons and all sorts of different events for people to get involved in. And so we can test whether people like this technology, do they want it? We then aim to stimulate the creative economy through collaborations and opportunities to help us make new experiences, and most importantly, building a community of practice to facilitate the uptake of these new innovations. So as a team, we look after 3 products. So Connected Studio, which is an established community of practice that focuses on this adoption of technology through events, partnerships, initiatives, and through collaborating with the wider digital industry in general. We then have BBC Makerbox, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today, which supports and builds on this community through offering the latest tools and technologies, as well as opportunities for people to learn from each other and connect with other creative minds. And last but not least, we have BBC Taster, which is the home of our experimental projects. So this offers creators the chance to showcase their work and get feedback on their experiences while reaching an audience at scale, seeing how they respond, how they interact with these experiences. So those are our three products. So Makerbox is the newest of our three products. We launched back to the public in October 2019. So it's not new, but it's definitely still the baby of our products. I'm just going to show you a short video, a little bit more about Makerbox. A small caveat, I do the voiceover of this, this video. So if you see me cringing in the corner, that is why. But here we go. It's very short.
Discover the latest tools for your project. Explore formats like spatial sound, augmented reality, responsive storytelling, and more. Learn from the experts with our in-depth case studies and connect with our community of practice. Share your passion with other future thinkers. Makerbox. For the artists, the technologists, the producers, and the curious. Makerbox. Together, we'll get so much further.
So there we go. That's Makerbox, and this is our mission statement. Makerbox connects curious minds to the tools, community, and resources to inspire them to create the future of digital content. And we really believe within our team that these types of tools and these ways of working are the future of content. So Makerbox aims to deliver this mission in these three ways. So discover, we want users to discover the latest tools and technology, both that the BBC has made or that we've licensed from third parties, as I mentioned earlier, and allowing people to experiment with creative application and kind of really fuel their passion and their interest in digital storytelling. We want people to learn from each other in order to make the best content possible. So we work a lot with producers, producer developers, creative technologists, digital artists, but also with a lot of universities. We've had people on English courses and creative writing courses using our tools. So we do work with a lot of people that have experimented with digital storytelling a lot and are very well versed in this area, but we also have a really keen eye on people that have never worked on anything like this before and have always been interested, but maybe something's been holding them back, whether they feel that they haven't got the time or the skill or the tools available to them. Spoiler alert, you do, they're available. You definitely can do it. So we have case studies on our site as well, which really help break down the barriers for people. So seeing what other teams have made hopefully inspires people to realize that they can do this themselves as well. But most importantly, connect. We want people to connect in a community of practice where makers and technologists can partner together on new work, as well as build on top of technology that we may have open sourced. So we do have a community forum, which is open for people to join, so they can talk about things that they've made, ideas that they've got, and meet other like-minded creators. So the tools, as I mentioned, one of the ways that we engage with and build our community of practice is through offering tools for people to experiment with. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly today about a few of the tools that we have on Makerbox, as well as talking about a few examples of what teams have made with them so far, just to give you a bit of an idea. So these three are actually all developed by BBC R&D. This isn't a shameless plug for BBC R&D tools, but they are genuinely our most requested and most in-demand tools, and also the ones that are most accessible to the public. So the first tool that I'm going to talk to you about today is called Audio Orchestrator. So Audio Orchestrator was part of the BBC R&D audio team's wider work in creating personalised and immersive listening experiences, as well as the tools to deliver these experiences to audiences. So I would hazard a guess that the average person, the average home, doesn't have a full audio setup, surround sound system, noise cancelling padding on the walls in their homes. It's just not an accessible, kind of feasible thing. It would also be very costly for people to have in their homes. So the team came up with a way to deliver these experiences to our audiences so they could enjoy them in their own homes with equipment that they may already own. And thus Audio Orchestrator was born. So the tool itself allows you to take your audio projects and rework them into 360 spatial audio that completely envelops your listeners in sound by using their everyday connected devices. So while people may not have full audio setups, again, not everyone, but most people do have access to phones, tablets, smart speakers, smart TVs, anything that's connected to the internet. And the tool then sends sound to one, many, or all of these connected devices in order to tell the story in a new and unique way. So one of the things that I really love about this tool and the experiences that it creates is that it really lends itself to a very collaborative experience. So obviously, depending on how many devices that you have at home, you could set it up yourself and just really enjoy being in the zone on your own. But I demo this tool quite a lot to the public at kind of, events and conferences and things. And it's really amazing to get a big group of people all together, all with their phones out, all connected on one experience and kind of enjoying it together and going around and listening to what each person is getting out of their phone. Is someone getting the vocals, or is someone getting the drums? And creating sort of our own audio sweet spot by putting somebody in the middle so that they get that full kind of 360 experience. So it's a really cool thing to see. So some things that teams have made using this: audio dramas. We had a World War II audio drama. Horror stories are really popular. That's something that often pops into people's minds when they think about Audio Orchestrator. Guided meditations, all sorts of different things. But something which has been particularly popular is Seeking New Gods, which was a pilot created by Super Furry Animals frontman Griff Rhys, if anyone remembers Super Furry Animals from the 90s. So Griff used Audio Orchestrator to recreate his latest album into a brand new way for his fans to enjoy his music. And I think it went down really well. So the next tool is Storyformer. So Storyformer is a tool that allows you to create personalized, flexible stories that respond dynamically with the user's choices, preferences, and/or context. So this can happen either before the story starts, so making a bunch of selections and choices, sitting back and watching as the story unfolds, or while it's underway, so doing more kind of proactive, as you go, choosing your own adventure type choices to make an experience like that. So the same story can be told completely differently for every viewer. Different parts of the story can be completely avoided or expanded on. You can go into something in depth, just completely depending on whatever your user wants. So it also allows for the media for any particular part of the narrative to be very varied, which is really important for kind of accessibility needs. So perhaps your audience would rather listen to an audio version of a story rather than watch it. So an example of a project that worked really, really well with Storyformer, this one is still, I actually think Seeking New Gods is still on Taster. This definitely is still on Taster. It's called the Discover Your Daemon or Demon, which was part of the His Dark Materials brand, and it was created by BBC Creative. So this project has been phenomenally successful, really, really simple, but really, really effective experience. So users were able to choose their own path through the experience to discover their demon, which they could then share on socials with their friends and followers. And something that's really nice about this experience is it really taps into that kind of human curiosity of replaying experiences. So, making choices and getting one result, and then people would go back and go, right, what happens if I choose the complete opposite? What happens if I do that? And when we launched this pilot, I think somebody played it through about 63 times or something. So that's obviously quite a lot, but very replayable. So just to reiterate, this was created by BBC Creative producers, not engineers. This is a very accessible, very user-friendly tool, and a nice example of what I was talking about earlier in terms of having a keen eye on people who think that they can't make digital stories because they've not got a background in coding. You definitely can. So there are a bunch of other examples on BBC Taster of Storyformer experiences, so do go and check those out if you have a chance or if you're interested. And last but not least, we have the Adaptive Podcasting Editor. So this is our newest tool for making projects on BBC Makerbox. So again, developed by BBC R&D for making perceptive and personalized podcasts. So we think this is the first tool of its kind, and it's bringing the next generation of podcasting to listeners. So there are two elements to this tool. We have the editor, but also an Android app that's been released that allows you to play adaptive podcasts created with the editor, so producers can share their creations with audiences. So the way that it works is that the app uses data and sensors on the listener's device to immerse them in an audio experience that is completely tailored to them. So within the editor, when you're piecing together your podcast, you can set conditions around specific data and sensor that your phone or device is going to capture. So for example, do you want the story to change depending on the date? Is it summer? Is it Christmas time? Is it autumn? What time of day is it? Is this person just getting out of bed? Are they just getting into bed? What are the light levels in the room? Is it dark? Is it bright? Are they even in a room? Are they outside? Are they walking around? How much battery have they got left on their device? Could you use that piece of information to add a subtle change to the way that the story changes? Is the user wearing headphones? Are they listening to something that, you know, maybe if you're in a public place, you wouldn't want it to be played out loud? Have they got their headphones on? Whole world of opportunities to play around with. And also just say the user does have full control over the data that it's used. It's not captured anywhere. It's not held anywhere. It's entirely retained within the user's device. If anyone does have more questions about that, I can put you in contact with somebody who knows more about how that works than I do. So those are our three big hitters, but I just wanted to mention these two tools very quickly because they are very fresh to Makerbox. We launched them in the last couple of weeks. So as I mentioned, Makerbox is a place to learn and connect. So as well as tools to help you actually make something, we have other resources to help you get started or kind of checkpoint as you go along, that you're on the right track. So these two tools are specifically designed to help you make decisions on what really matters to your audience, to get to the heart of what is important to them. And also with reference to the remote interactions guidelines, a set of principles around creating a sense of togetherness in an online world or in an online experience where maybe people aren't together. So if you are interested, please do check those out as well. That is all from me. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention. If you want to try any of our tools, please send us a request on bbc.co.uk/Makerbox. They are free, actually. I probably should have mentioned that. They are free and accessible for people to play with. If you want to look at any of the experiences that I've talked about today, it's bbc.co.uk/taster. And if you'd like to get in touch with me or with a member of the team, those are our contact details. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bronnie. And I must re-log in because I have actually got a membership to that, and I got an email the other day saying you've got to log in or you're going to expire. I've been running this festival, so as soon as I'm finished, I get to go and play myself. So that was really interesting, and it's great to hear the inner details of some of the projects. They sound really fascinating. And those last two, Robbie in the audience, they might be good for you for the project you guys are working on. Anyway, we'll go into that in a little bit. We've got a nice crowd of attendees joining us now, which is great. Morning, everyone. Happy weekend. Well, we've finished the weekend. Happy Monday. But what we'll do now is I'll introduce you, Bethany, and then we'll hear from you about the amazing stuff you're doing, and then we'll have a wee bit of a chat. So, without further ado, so Bethany is an archaeologist and digital artist who received her Masters in Archaeology of Buildings with distinction from the University of York in 2019. Her research is in 3D reconstructive modelling of lost structures, and that led her to found the company Experience Heritage, which is an endeavour that combines her heritage and digital media passions. Her work focuses on 3D modelling and XR and mobile applications to educate and make heritage more immersive and accessible for groups such as the National Trust and National Paralympics Heritage Trust. Bethany has been recently awarded Most Influential Digital Media and Research Businesswoman by Acquisition International magazine, and she was also named in the Digital Enterprise Top 100 Index and included in the Yorkshire Business Insider's 42 under 42s for 2023. So this talk will focus on how photogrammetry is being used in digital storytelling, including through AR, VR, 360 tours and virtual production. Over to you, Bethany.
Thanks, Heather. And Bronnie, really great presentation. It's a hard one to follow, but I'll do my best. So yes, as Heather said, I'm a digital archaeologist. I do digital media, and I use that within heritage to tell stories and bring history to life. And I've found that a lot of my work involves photogrammetry, and you wouldn't always know that that would be the case, but I'll kind of show you some of the case studies today about how I've used photogrammetry in a multitude of ways. So in case you're not aware of what photogrammetry is, it's basically just creating a 3D model using photographs, and you can use your phone or any camera. And there's a lot of great free software or ones that you can use starter versions of, and I'll talk about those in a second. But you can use these to make models of objects, landscapes, buildings, lots of different use cases. So this is kind of the workflow that I go through. So it depends on how you take the photographs. You have to be very strategic depending on what it is that you're creating. So if you're doing an object, you're going to be doing photographs, kind of doing a circle around the object. As you can see here, there's all the photographs, and that's kind of a dome that I've taken of all those photographs. So you have to make sure that every aspect of the object is seen, because the computer can only recreate digitally what it's seen. So it's very important to cover it properly. When you're doing a room like I did in that first video, you're kind of thinking about each wall as its own object, but then you have to make sure to strategically tie that to the other walls so it knows where in space everything is. And it's a bit more complicated doing a room than an object. And then lastly, if you're doing landscape photography, I have a drone, so you use the drone and fly over and actually direct the camera straight down at the ground, and then kind of fly it in a zigzag pattern so that it can see the depth between the differences of the photos. So once you've taken the photos, then what I do is I take it into a program called Metashape. And there is a free trial version of this, so you can try that out without having to pay for it. But there are other ones that are free online. Reality Capture is a great one as well. You do have to pay for it to output the model, but everything before that is free, so you can try that out. There's also one called Meshroom, I believe, that's free as well. So that's where the software finds the points and creates the point cloud, and then puts the mesh on the model, and then puts in the texture to make it look real from the photographs. And even from that, you probably will have a good enough model to put right into something like Sketchfab, which is an online platform where you can look at the models, turn them around, zoom in on them, add content to them, things like that, and embed that onto a website or share that link. But a lot of the work that I do, I end up having to do a bit of cleanup and modifying of the models. So I take it into Mesh Mixer, which is actually a program used to 3D print. But it's a great way to clean up the mesh, smooth out some rocky parts where the software hasn't quite figured out what it's looking at, or fill in holes where things maybe have been missed. And then I go into 3ds Max, which is a 3D modeling software, and do a bit more advanced cleanup. And this is an example of me working on this beautiful model of a banana. But one side was a bit messed up, so I had to combine two different models together. And this is kind of just showing how you kind of sometimes a little bit more work has to be involved in creating a beautiful model to go somewhere. And finally, I've started using Substance Painter recently, and that's a program where you can actually paint the texture onto a model. So you don't have to figure out like on the texture that it's flattened out and all in different pieces everywhere in a 2D space where everything is. You can just have the model in front of you and paint right directly onto the model, which is really helpful. It's a bit of a learning curve, but I'm getting there. So now I'll talk about how you can where you can use these models. So you can use them to create a digital twin for a multitude of purposes, and I'll go into some of those in a minute. You can use them to create a physical duplicate, so doing a 3D print of something, using it for creating accurate dimensions of a building or a site or something like that. For augmented reality, you can use it to accurately place something on a landscape. You can create a virtual tour that can be a little bit more dynamic than just a 2D 360 image. And then you can also use it to create assets for things like games or augmented reality. So I'll go through some of my case studies now. So this one was at Nostell Priory. What they wanted was just a 2D image on an iPad to show the top hall, how it was meant to appear. And so a lot of the work I did was actually in Photoshop, just in a 2D image. But if you look at the floor here, the original was meant to be a marble floor. And this meant that there was going to be a lot of reflections as well as dynamics with the light coming in the windows and stuff like that. And this would have been really, really hard to do in Photoshop, especially because my skills in Photoshop aren't the greatest. So what I ended up doing was creating a 3D model of the room itself. And then in the final image, I didn't actually use the model, but that model helped me to cast the right shadows onto the marble floor and use the light through the windows and things like that to get a more realistic looking floor for the final image. And I also used it for, so this model here is a 3D model of the statue there. So I was able to get accurate shadows and things like that on that by using that in the model. And then the next project was actually also at Nostell Priory. This time they wanted a digital model of the doll's house that they have on exhibit there now. But as you can see, it's behind glass and everything is fixed into place and people can't really see what it would have been like with the door shut and how they moved and slid open like this. So they wanted a 3D model of that in a digital animation next to the doll's house itself. So I actually ended up creating 3 different models. So the main body of the doll's house, and then the doors were not attached. So I did models of each of those. Now the doll's house is like taller than I am, and the space that it was in, we couldn't move it. So it was really limiting the pictures we could actually get. So I ended up having to kind of recreate the whole back of it and the roof because I couldn't get images of that. So there was a lot of post work put into this, but once the model was done, then we animated it and created the little video that was just playing there. And that's now part of the exhibit for the doll's house. The next one was that Parlor Maid Scone House. We created a virtual tour of the building there. They really wanted to highlight what the building itself, apart from the other buildings around it, looked like, but also give people an opportunity, even while they're sitting in the Scone House, to get more information about the building because it was quite a rich history on the shambles in York there. So I had to take photographs of the exterior as well as the interior on each different level. And I had a great volunteer helping me with that, the photography on the interior. And then I also had to do drone photography so that I could get the roof. So I ended up having to combine 5 different models to create the final complete model. And there's a lot of cleanup that had to happen because furniture is really hard to capture in a space, and there was a lot of cleanup there. And then once the model was complete, then I put it into Sketchfab and added the informational points so that it kind of created a virtual tour of the space. And the great thing about Sketchfab is also that there is a component where you can put it into virtual productions or into virtual reality. So if you have a headset, you can load up Sketchfab model and actually be immersed in the space. So you could actually do this as a virtual reality experience. That was that project. And then, so the next one is what I'm working on still is for a virtual production background, basically. So virtual production is the creation of a background that you can film in front of that takes the place of traditional green screen filming. So as you can see in this video down here, this image down here, this is a giant LED screen, and they'll place the actors in front of the screen. And the background is actually projecting a 3D space that's in Unity game engine, being manipulated by a computer that you can't see offset. So the reason that using a 3D model in that space is really important is because if you want to move the camera around the space, if you had a 2D image, then you're not going to get the perspective changes and the parallax changing in the background. And so it's not going to look like it's a real background. It's just going to look like you're standing in front of an image. But if you have that movement in space, then it really comes off as a real background. And so we're doing something similar with the Mansion House ballroom. So that was just a little clip of what I've been working on with that. But I also wanted to show you this. This is, we were playing around at one of the studios. So that behind me is all a 3D model, and they're moving the camera in the virtual space. So it looks like I'm actually walking through the space, and you can't really tell that it's not a real background, which is really cool. And finally, I just wanted to talk about this little project I've been working on for a long time. Been reconstructing Skipsea Castle. It's now currently just a mound in a field, but someone actually had created a landscape model of it from drone photography. So I used that to be able to place the castle at the right height, so that when I do create the augmented reality app and take it out there, it should, I haven't actually been able to go out to test it yet, but it should place it properly on the mound, so it's not kind of floating in space or like too far into the mound. So that's one use case where landscape photogrammetry can really help you to create augmented reality experiences. And that is me. And then I would love to know if you have any questions, but thank you.
Fantastic. You have been busy. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. And the virtual production project is coming on amazingly well. That's great. It's lovely to see, actually. Fantastic. Okay, let's see if we've got any questions coming through yet. So anyone who's interested, feel free to put questions in the Q&A box. And I'll get us started with some questions. Robbie's come through already. Okay, this one's for you, Bronnie. How steep is the learning curve for Makerbox? Are there any tutorials?
Hello, brilliant question. Hi, Robbie. So there are some tutorials depending on the tool, just depending on how far in the process we've got with tutorials, but there's guidance on there, whether it's a video tutorial or a how-to guide or some top tips. If you look at our site, we have tried to make it kind of as accessible for people as possible. And in terms of the learning curve, I think it's one of the wonderful things about what we're trying to do is that, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are really trying to reach people that have never done anything like this before. So all of our tools, we hope, are very user-friendly and accessible for people to use, but also that we are here to help. We have people that are far more well-versed in this stuff than I am, that have actually built these tools, that are on hand to answer any questions, as well as our community of people that have already been making things. So hopefully, I mean, it totally depends on what you want to make as well, to be honest. You could make something very, very simple. If you want to make something, very, very grand, you might need a little bit more experience, but there's definitely plenty to be playing around with if you've never made anything before.
I'm dying to have a shot with your spatial audio thing, actually. And when you talked about having everyone in the room together and having it coming out on everyone's phone, but slightly differently. I teach classes at the university, and I'm like, right, how can we do that in the next class? How can we get everybody in the class together and start to play with this stuff and learn in new and interesting ways? So yeah, really excited about that. Okay, Bethany, question for you from Robbie. How many images does it take to create a 3D model? That's
a good question. It depends on the thing that you're taking a picture of, I guess. I would say the Parlor Made one was probably like 1,500 or something like that, with all the different exterior and interior. But an object, you might be able to do like 200 or 150 or something like that. Sometimes it seems like taking a lot of photographs would actually be better because you're making sure you're getting a lot of coverage, but sometimes more photographs can actually confuse the software. And if you have some that don't turn out really well, it's going to make it actually worse. So as far as the Mansion House model, I actually took out half of them and it ended up turning out way better. So it's just, you kind of have to try it out and try different batches of photographs and stuff.
I bet you that's a big size file as well. You must have about a zillion external hard drives on the go.
Yeah, they're filling up quickly.
Okay, Shlomi's got a question for Bethany. Have you worked with 360 cameras instead of taking each photo separately?
Yeah, this is a thing. Like, I think 360, I don't know if you can actually do photogrammetry with a 360 image, because the thing that you need to do is you have to have different perspectives on an object. And if you're taking everything from one point and shooting outward, you're not getting those different perspectives. You really need to move the camera around the object so it understands the depth of different things. So I've heard a lot of people talk about using 360, but I've never learned how that's possible, to be honest. So yeah, I use 360 for other reasons, but not for photogrammetry.
It tends to be your 360s for kind of like doing your full kind of surround video or surround visuals going out the way, whereas photogrammetry is almost like you're taking all the images going in the way and doing full sort of 3D. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, Robbie wants to know, Bronnie, what makes a tool innovative?
Myself. Oh, what a question. I guess anything. I mean, anything that's kind of new, anything that's trying a different method, just something that's kind of a bit different and interesting, I guess. In terms of, I mean, R&D, as the name might suggest, we are a group of researchers and experimenters. So yeah, I guess it's anything that is new, unique, that's going to challenge something, that's going to test something. Who actually makes the decisions on what those innovative tools are and what our area of research is not defined by me, but I can definitely put you in touch with somebody who does if you'd like to know more. But yeah, I would say anything new and exciting.
I always describe things that are innovative when I teach. It's creativity with an invoice attached. It's like, it's like it's got an application, or you can see that it adds value to something that and it's created in an innovative and an exciting and innovative way, I suppose. Anyway, so what techniques have surprised you by the level of engagement? I think this is from both of you, actually. This is from Elizabeth Fisher.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Heather?
Sure. Which techniques have surprised you by the level of engagement? Are there any particular of the tools that you've got in your Makerbox that you're just really surprised as to how many folk have? I mean, for example, the fact that someone come back and rewatch something 63 times is, I guess, a surprise. But
I mean, I was surprised that someone had played it 63 times, but I guess again, like I mentioned previously, sorry to repeat myself, but like I think it really, the thing with that experience is that it was a very natural thing to do. Like I wasn't surprised that so many people played it more than once, because that's immediately what I did. I think it was like I haven't actually watched His Dark Materials, I probably should, but I think the daemon that I got was a silkworm. And I was like, ooh, what happens if I do the opposite of everything? It was basically like a personality test type thing, which is why it was so simple. It was very familiar to people. And I think maybe that's why it was also visually very, very beautiful. And then I got a pine marten or something. And then I was like, what even is a pine? All of that. So I think that it was surprising to get someone doing it so many times, but not that they did it. In terms of other kind of surprising things, I mean, the thing, again, something that we always say to people, that I always say to people when they're coming up with ideas, is we want people to tell us that we've been doing this completely wrong, that they've got the best idea and the newest thing to go, you've been making audio dramas with Audio Orchestrator, you fools, this is what you should be doing with it. So do actually, I set that as a challenge, come and surprise us, like,
Don't tell Robbie that.
Oh no, Robbie, come on.
Game on, Robbie. Okay, Bethany, what was the greatest challenge you have encountered recreating reality in the virtual space?
Oh, good question. I think the biggest challenge I'm currently facing, because I'm just learning the software, is the Substance Painter and painting on the texture, making the texture, because it comes out looking really, really realistic in a photogrammetry world. But then if you have to do any kind of modification to it, for instance, in the mansion house, I'm having to remove the furniture and fill in the holes where it's left because it didn't get the behind texture. I'm having to kind of repaint that, and it's just a learning curve because I've never used the software that much. So yeah, I think currently that's the one on my mind, I guess. So yeah.
Sounds quite tricky, actually. Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got Sophia for Bronnie. Do you have any examples of interactive documentary projects made on Storyformer? I've used Clint to create an interactive documentary, but I'm interested to know about the scope of Storyformer to make interactive documentaries.
Yes, so there are a couple on not on Makerbox, on Taster currently. So at the beginning of last year, we worked on a initiative with Culture UK called Dance Passion. So there was an experience that was created called Laying the Ground, which is an interactive documentary which followed a dancer and choreographer, the history of his life and his work and how he came to the UK and, became one of the most well-known dancers in the UK. So there's that one. And then there's also a project which you might be interested in looking at called Beneath Still Waters, again on Taster, which isn't a traditional documentary, but I think shows some nice elements of how you could use it in a documentary way in terms of it's a project all about the science behind dance. So you could either follow, depending on what you were interested in, you could follow the really scientific, they had all the dancers in like biometric suits, testing like their blood oxygen levels and the kind of exertion needed to do these dance moves. So you could follow the very scientific route, or if you were more interested in the choreography and kind of the art behind it, you could follow that as well. So that's kind of not a traditional documentary, but maybe some elements that might be interesting for a documentary type thing.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds really interesting. Okay, great. Thank you. From Robbie, what impact does the tools used have on the story you tell?
Yeah, I guess, well, for instance, if I'm using photogrammetry, you have a very realistic element. It looks kind of real world, but so that can be a very different storytelling to like a completely artistic reconstruction of something. So that can change. And also then how you are presenting that story. So if you're presenting it in VR, you're going to be fully immersed in that in a different way than if it was just a kind of 2D digital animation. Yeah.
Cool. You got anything to add, Bronnie?
Just that it's a really interesting question. I think it's as well more than just the tool having an impact on the story. It's kind of more around interactivity and immersion in general, kind of like what Bethany was just saying about, like, being in VR is a totally different experience to seeing a 2D digital experience. Mm-hmm. So the impact of kind of the choices that you're giving your user or your reader or your viewer, and making them meaningful and making them have impact is really important, rather than just trying to shoehorn in interactivity. It's something that we see quite a lot, that people will write a story in a very traditional linear sense and then try and put the interaction in. It can work like that, but it's not always as effective as if you start with the interaction and why you want to make it an interactive piece. I think that's a really important question to start with. What benefit is interaction going to have to this story, and working that way? So I think it's more than just the tool. It's obviously the tools allow you to then do that, but it's the kind of principles of it as well.
It was interesting. Lucy from Pilot Theatre last week was saying the same thing. She's like, the first question you ask is interactivity necessary? As a theatre company, it's like, if it's not necessary, then why wouldn't you just do it as a traditional theatre piece? But if it is, if there's something within that piece that requires the interactivity, then you design it around that. You kind of with it in mind from the beginning. So that makes complete sense. Okay, so Shlomi, in the New York Times, there is a story today about Apple's interactive goggles running into launch challenges this summer. I'm assuming that's their smart glasses. Is that right? Would that be the same thing? Any thoughts about how the future of goggles will change AR, VR? Bit of a techie one, that actually.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about this advancement because I can see that being an opportunity to kind of have like an augmented reality experience, but when you don't have to hold your phone, so you don't feel like there's kind of removing that separation, because you're not just having to walk around like this, but it's not a VR experience completely cutting you off from the world.
Mhm.
So I think there's really great opportunity for kind of interacting with characters in a space that aren't actually there, but yeah, it's kind of a new storytelling device that way. I think it's really exciting, and I'm eager to play around with it.
Yeah. I mean, I've used interactive location triggered dramas and stuff like that on a phone, and the problem is the second you go off that screen and into your someone pings your emails or something else happens, you lose it, and you lose that sense of being in another place. So you know, having the AR glasses and having that overlay and being able to kind of experience that, you're right, without having that extra device that you're having to take in and out your pocket, it would be really interesting and probably much more immersive. But it's interesting, I'd say, as well, from the perspective of you know, retail and that type of thing, or wayfaring, and actually being able to use it to add a layer of information on that would be interesting too. And I think, because although Apple are having trouble launching in the summer, I think it is coming. You know, it's a long way from Google smart glasses. Where however many years ago that was, when there just wasn't, people weren't ready for them and there wasn't any content for them. I think now we're getting much closer to being able to actually put interesting content on them as well. So yeah, let's see what the future. And also, it's interesting that VR glasses, VR headsets, sorry, are getting much smaller, and then the nearest the sort of the iterations that are coming out later this year, they're much more compact. They've got much more intelligent eyepieces, and they're now tracking, not only hand tracking but eye tracking as well. So if you add that and then the AI element in, you know, suddenly you've got a much more sophisticated piece of kit. That I think the AR glasses and the VR headsets getting smaller, I think, you know, you're going to have quite a range of new technology and opportunity there for really immersive stuff, and also that overlaid stuff in a way that we've never had before. So watch this space, eh? Exciting times. Okay. Hopefully that answers Shlomi. What's the future of these tools? Asked Robbie. Well, that's a big question, that one. Who knows? Have you got any ideas?
In terms of like the tools that I've spoken about today that we developed, I think the future is to keep developing them kind of as need for them progresses, or maybe doesn't. So for example, you know, Storyformer, from what it started as, is a completely different tool than what it is today, and the team are constantly adding new elements based on what people need. That's not always that's not a free invitation to go, I wanted to do this. They can't always do that, unfortunately, but you know, adding in more accessibility features and adding in kind of automatic subtitles and adding in features that make it easier to share your projects. So yeah, they're constantly in development, and we're still kind of testing the parameters of what these tools can do. Adaptive podcasting, as I mentioned, is brand new to Makerbox, and we're still kind of seeing what people want it for and what they're going to do with it. So watch this space. If you've got any ideas, let us know.
Okay. Just a quick question on that. So if you're using your tools to create stuff and then you're putting on BBC Taster, is the premise that it's all open source, or that it's all available for free for all to enjoy? And is the sort of setting there that it's an R&D space and you can't then commercialize what you're producing?
So all the code behind it depends on the tool. The code behind Audio Orchestrator is open sourced, so people can build on that. I believe, I will have to double check this, I believe parts of adaptive podcasting will be soon, open-ended soon, not sure when that would be. But in terms of actually using the tools, they are very much kind of experimental tools. And you know, we do work with the digital industry and do collaborations and initiatives. They aren't for commercial use. We can't unfortunately have people making money off them, but they're more kind of experimental.
Yeah, just sort of learning the craft and developing and sharing. That's a nice philosophy as well. Okay, so a couple more questions coming through. So Julie, I want to say how brilliant it is to see an all-women techie panel. Can any of the panelists and their chair comment on the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated world and how we can address stereotypes and encourage more girls or women to work in this sphere.
How
Wow.
much time have we got for that discussion?
Yeah, you got another 40 minutes if you want.
Sorry, Bethany, do you want to go?
Oh no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it still is, at least in my experience, it does present challenges for, and I was thinking exactly the same. Like, oh, it's so nice to see like an all-women techie board, which is really great. In terms of, I don't even know where I'm going with this answer. It's a really tricky one. I think something that we do initiatives with schools sometimes, and I think it's really important to kind of like get kids when they're so young. I think often by the time that you get to later years and making choices or university courses or whatever, it's never too late, but I think that sometimes those kind of wrong social expectations are too ingrained at that point. So yeah, getting people young and like, and also, sorry, just to elaborate a little bit more, is that there's a whole, I think when people think about a career in like technology or in the digital space, it's a very kind of narrow idea of what that means. And there are so many different careers. Like, I'm not from a digital background at all. Like, I studied English and, I've always done that, and I've ended up kind of in a digital world. So there's a whole, not to limit people, I guess, in terms of what that actually means.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, I think it's kind of making young women aware that this is a career that you can go into, and you don't have to, as you said, start out with a tech background. I did film and theater in my undergrad, so I learned all the tech as I came along. But I think having like women in tech networking groups and things like that, and just raising awareness for other women to see that it's not a male-dominated world anymore, and those opportunities are available for everyone. Because I think I've felt pretty lucky. I haven't really come up against too much resistance in the field that I'm in as a woman, but maybe it's just unseen. But I just ignore it if it's happening, I guess. But yeah, I think it's just raising that awareness for young women.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I have daughter and sons who are all interested in game development. And I think it's very important because there are so many games out there now where you actually create worlds and create and all these sorts of things. And my daughter loves doing it too. And I think as a parent, it's so easy, to kind of steer, oh, my son will be interested in this. And you have to make sure that you don't start with that attitude that, so I find my daughter just as comfortable as my sons, and she's very young, and it starts early. You have to kind of start that path early rather than just making assumptions about what they'll be interested in.
No, totally, absolutely. And I think as well, depending on what bit of techie it is, there's a lass called Catherine Allen from Limina Immersive, who we had doing a TEDx talk in York a couple of years ago now. And she was coming up with a charter, which was, if you're going to create these virtual worlds in a virtual space, in this new, at that time, which was quite new, VR sort of using technology, then, create it, design it to be an accessible and, inclusive and dynamic space. Don't just have it where people are shooting zombies all the time, create it with people who might become the end user. So design it with women and girls in mind when you start, so looking at that sort of culture of building a VR ecosystem and how you design that stuff in from the start, so there's people that are doing some really interesting stuff around that, in terms of the VR space. But also Myra and Simon from Bright Black last week were talking about the fact that I think it was the 1980s, early 1990s, that the majority of people designing for VR were women. And anything involving multisensory, where you're creating some sort of effect using all the senses, and it was predominantly women that were producing that work. It tended to be when the corporate investors got involved that it switched across to being men, and a lot of that was because of this the agenda of the investor, which is basically, you need to work 70 hours a week and then sell out in 3 to 5 years time, making 700% return on investment. And so women who might have wanted children at the time, or were jumping out and in of a career at that point in their lives, or it wasn't as easy for them in that space to be working 70 hours plus a week and then selling out, so there's a lot of different factors, I think, that women have to deal with in that space in order to progress their careers, but also to progress these technological businesses at the same time. And so it's a lot of this as well is about making sure that you're providing and supporting anybody in society to be able to do this, and allowing people, especially now post-pandemic, where you can have a much more flexible way of working, that you can, encouraging women and young lassies that, this is a career that you can easily get into now. And, it is definitely a great career to be getting involved with for anybody. And that having the balanced viewpoint across the board is a much healthier and an exciting space to be in anyway, I would say. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit, Julie. And I have actually, when I curated the festival, made it a point of mine to make sure it was a really balanced session right across the board. So although a couple of the sessions are all men, some of them are all women, but overall for the entire festival we have a really good even spread of opinions right across the board. So that was deliberate to make sure that the people were represented. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Julie. And Girl Geeks is a great organisation, you're absolutely right. And in York, Women in Tech's really great as well. And there are other local kind of outfits that are very supportive and great to get involved with. Okay, so who knows about AI? I'm going to ask this and see how we go. With all the hype over AI these days, do you see these tools evolving into smart produce and capture? What do you mean by smart produce and capture, Shlomi? Okay, see if she'll come back to us. Because I think.
Well, I don't know if this is what they're asking, but when I thought about AI for this panel, I was thinking about something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I think it's going to be possible with AI eventually, which is reconstructive 3D modeling with using AI to kind of help you fill in the gaps. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I don't think we have to, I mean, there's always the concern, and we've already been seeing it with like things being pinched from artists and things like that. But I think there are a lot of really useful use cases for AI as another tool to help you do some of those things that cuts down your time on those things, so you can focus on other things.
No, totally. Yeah, Shlomi's come back saying like coming up with stories, but yeah, so in terms of producing the stories in the first place, maybe using AI around that. But also, I think you're absolutely right, though. I think there's definitely uses there. Was it last week they were talking about using them for folk that don't code? So if you don't know C#, but if you can ask an AI element to code something in C# for you that achieves X, then that might be quite a useful thing for folk who want to produce stuff in a Unity, for example, but can't because they don't understand how to write in C#. So something like that might be another use. Did you want to add anything, Bronnie?
I'm definitely not an AI expert at all. We did test out a tool a few years ago. There's some studies and kind of like feedback on what we did with it on the site. We tested Charisma AI. Don't know if anyone's used it or heard of it. But which was a tool that allowed you to kind of create really character-driven stories. So it was kind of an interesting look at putting the user like right at the center of the story and talking to a character rather than like the AI writing the story. So there was still some input as like the producer or the writer of the story to kind of like create the characters, train them, and then you would talk to them either through typing or through voice, and have a chat with them, and just to sort of see where the story went. So that was quite an interesting experiment to use. But yeah, kind of similarly, I agree, like there's with what Bethany was saying in terms of like it being used to add to things as well. I think there's maybe a bit of quite rightly concern around maybe some of the ethics of it, and in terms of like losing the kind of creativity of, you know, artists and producers and, you know, just creative people. But I think if we look at it as more as like a new way of telling stories, rather than it's going to completely eradicate human imagination, there's no reason why it couldn't be used to kind of add to a story, or just be a different way of telling a story.
Now, Maggie, you're a writer and a poet. What do you reckon? Are you worried about AI?
You know, actually, when they were talking about that, I have to admit I was a little bit alarmed, you know, and at the same time, but then when I saw what was written, I do think there is a level of complexity and sort of emotion that doesn't yet get translated by AI. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, who knows what will happen someday, but I would be very sad, you know, if suddenly poetry was all AI poetry, but I also think it would be deeply lacking. You know, I think our speaker at the time, she said that she was a marketeer, and she said that she can see two things written and know which one was written by ChatGPT and which one wasn't. She said she knows the marker, she knows how to tell. And I think AI has a long way to go. I hope. I hope. But also too, I mean, one of the things that's great about poetry and writing is people want to connect with the writer. You know, they want to know that someone experiences the same things they do. And obviously AI can't give you that human connection. So I think it can never completely replace, you know, art or, you know, or writing or any of those things. I think people always want the human connection still.
I think you're absolutely right there, actually. And I think there's that thing of like people want a little bit of the artist's soul, don't they? And
yes,
or you know, in the poem that they listen to, and yeah, if you have it completely AI generated, then at what point do you lose that human connection? You know?
yeah, exactly. I mean, and if you think about the great artists and the great poets, we're as fascinated by them as people as we are by their art and what they've done. So. Yeah.
That's a fair point, yeah. But really fantastically useful though with things like doing photogrammetry in terms of getting the back of the couch, you know, and making sure that bit is in place, you know, trying to reduce the zillion hours of extra time that it would take. If something can just like do that in seconds, then perfect. It allows you more time to be creative in the first place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Brilliant. Okay, couple more questions. What is the impact of using multiple tools over using just one? Do I try that one, Bethany?
Yeah, well, I find, I mean, if we're talking software, I actually end up having to use multiple ones because there's always just a little small thing that each one can give you when you're working on things. I guess it just depends on the end case, the reason that you're making it and what you're trying to get out of it. But I think there's something to be said for finding how to use each tool to its advantage, and there's also something to say about streamlining that process so you don't have to take something through 15 different steps, but it just kind of depends on what you're trying to get out of it,
I think Dominic kind of nailed that one last week, didn't he, when he was talking about the fact that instead of his £45,000 LiDAR scanner that he was using, he got this latest iPhone, and he managed to do scan the same object in 5 minutes that would have cost him like tons of money and taken him on a very long time to do using the very expensive kit. Whereas actually, you know, these days, so much can be done just with your smart device in your back pocket, and just zipping through the different apps, you know, just chucking that between Polycam and then Sketchfab, and then suddenly you've got a VR version of your beaker person sort of pot from however many thousand years ago. You know, so having that adaptability in, you know, in your smartphone as well, just kind of taking it back to our sort of our tools for digital storytelling. You know, these are really low barriers to entry in terms of using these multiple tools, just all in your back pocket, really. Did you want to add anything, Bronnie?
Not really. Our tools sort of do work quite independently from each other, unless other than the two that I mentioned at the end, but they're not really they're more resources to help you rather than actually making something.
Brilliant. And then Julie just put another little link in YorkshireSoundWomen.com. Is that the Women in Sound Network, the Yorkshire Women in Sound Network, or is that a different group, Julie? I'm wondering. I did a little course on the Women in Sound Network, learning how to work Logic Pro. So I wonder if it's the same lot or not. But they were a really good network as well for women involved in tech. Anyway, the link's in the chat, so have a look at that. Okay, I think I might have interrogated you long enough now, guys. I hope that was okay for you. But I really enjoyed the conversation, and it's really interesting just getting to grips with the tools that are available and how quickly tech's moving on. And I'm really excited to go and play with Makerbox now. As I say, I haven't logged in. Yeah, I bet you're dying to have a shot at that, Maggie.
I am actually.
Yeah, totally. So we need to get logged back. I need to get logged back in, and you need to get your account set up. So hopefully you'll get a big influx, Bronnie, after today's session from all of our audience as well, wanting to go and have a bit of a play with that. Because it sounds really exciting and really accessible. And I think that's the thing with a lot of this stuff. It's just about play, isn't it? It's about going in and having a go, bringing your creativity to it, and just having a bit of a play about to see what the art of the possible is. And having that space to play and experiment is fantastic. So thank you very much.
I'm sorry. No, what I really liked too was the point you made that, your background's like in history and in English, and, you're an artist, and I think that's fantastic. These tools really are available for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to be a techie head to do it. You can just bring your creativity and let the hard, heavy lifting be done by the AI or the app or the piece of technology. So, what a minute, Julie's come back. Come across Yorkshire Sound and Women a couple of years. Thanks again for a brilliant session. She'll be telling lots of people to check out the recordings. Nice one, Julie. You can come back. I appreciate that very much. So, and thanks very much to all of the participants. You've been really supportive. We've got some familiar faces there that have been really great at participating, asking questions, even giving us great reviews on LinkedIn. So I do really appreciate the support over the last week and hopefully this week too. And thank you to you guys for being fantastic panelists and speakers. Really insightful and exciting stuff that you guys are working in. And every time I see you, I only saw you last week, Bethany, but already you've more stuff that you're involved with and that you're doing, which is just really cutting edge. So it's always great to hear what you're up to, and it's always new and exciting. So thank you very much for that. So just before I go, I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, the Screen Industry Growth Network, Sign, for helping to support the event, so without which we wouldn't be able to run the festival. So a big thank you to Sign for their support for the festival this week and last week. Thanks to you guys, and if you want to tell your friends to share the link, it's northerndigifest.co.uk/session recordings for the recordings of the sessions, or just go into sessions and you'll be able to book tickets for the rest of the week. So this evening we have Adam Gill from Vida Veo Film. We also have Shreyan's Jane from Volograms, which is a really exciting app, which I don't know if you remember in Star Wars, the little mini Leia who shouted that she only had 15 minutes to save the Earth, and it was a little hologram. Well, Volograms effectively make them. So you can basically make yourself or your mates into holograms, and then have a little AR version of yourself jumping up and down on the couch. So it's quite cool, actually. And they're a spin out from Trinity College Dublin, and they're doing some really interesting stuff in that space as well. And Adam's involved with all sorts of things. He's working on a film over at Spurn Point at the moment, which Bethany's involved with, which sounds quite exciting, a bit Stranger Things, but he's also involved with a lot of VR stuff, 360 stuff. So yeah, there should be quite an interesting chat later as well, so come back and join us for that if you can. So that is session 12, even more tools that can be used for digital storytelling. A nice innovative title that is. I was running out of titles by then. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll see you guys later, and thanks again guys for your brilliant talks.
Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.